What's up, Otakuans? Welcome back to another episode of the Manga Corner. This week, we're checking out the next installment of The Rising of the Shield Hero, Volume 5. And again, the anime has taken some creative liberties with their adaptation. This volume covers episodes 22 to 25, but there's plenty to unpack. Since we are beginning to have noticeable differences between the anime and novel, we will begin focusing more on what was left out of the novel and how certain scenes were different, which would influence the future events. If you're interested in this and more, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes of the Manga Corner. Without further ado, let's hop back into the story of Cardinal Heroes and Ways of Destruction with The Rising of the Shield Hero, Volume 5. Prologue, Class Up. As usual, our prologue focuses on our young heroes, a part of the Shield Hero party. Like in episode 22, we start off at the church as the group prepares to go through their class up ceremony. After a quick recap of the past events, the crew begins their class up. Though the anime speeds through these events, in our prologue, the crew is joined by the queen and her servants. Naofumi, the shield hero, explains to Raph and Philo that it's best for them to choose their own fate, since they must live with it even after he leaves. Starting off, both Philo and Raptalia were level 40, but with the star signifying they've reached their cap. But when they both attempt their class up, Philo's cowlick intervenes each time and causes a new line of growth to appear and select itself. The class up ceremony is a success, but it seems that both Philo and Raptalia's level have been chosen for them via the feather and the shield. The queen offers a level reset, so that the two can go through yet another class up, but doing so would bring them both back to level 1. The obvious risk wasn't worth the reward in his eyes. They ultimately agree the chosen branch may be stronger than any other branch, and the same is likely to happen again. Chapter 1, The Hero's Teammates. The following chapter begins with another expose dump, but the biggest change here is that the discovery of Bitch poisoning Naofumi's food was due to her being forced to taste test everything being served to him. We then reach the castle where we again meet the other heroes and their parties. Following the feast, the queen first announces to everyone in the hall the start of the activation event at Calmera and the need for the heroes to get stronger. Ren laughs at the idea that he needs to get stronger, where the queen then tells everyone in the hall that if the heroes fail to get any stronger, they will die. Well, everyone except Naofumi. Remembering the words of Victoria, Naofumi agrees with the queen that the hero party should meet and grow stronger. Now, not to bore you with everybody's personality during these meets, the biggest thing to know here is where we meet Isuki's party, we get to see exactly how Risha is treated firsthand. The whole party seems off as if there was some weird hierarchy, but it's brushed off. Ren's party wasn't too bad though. They just had their own weird way of leveling up and working together. And then, following, Ren and Isuki met the Shield's party. Something to note, Motoyasu was not here for any of this due to his visit to the hospital to see a now poisoned bitch. Chapter 2, Meeting of the Heroes. We then continue to the heroes meeting separately with the queen as we see in the anime. They do have to wait a bit for the spear hero, but he soon shows up and they can begin. The conversation immediately starts with the need to share knowledge, and the queen reminded to the other three heroes that Naofumi was the only one to stay on his feet the last time they fought in the wave. She also expressed the fact that many diplomats have also expressed their concern with their inability to survive what's to come. Just as we see in the anime, they begrudgingly share their info and question everything Naofumi says. But the biggest concern is when Naofumi finds out that they don't believe that they can actually die. They still believe they are in some sort of video game where they would just wake up in the hospital the next day. These idiots chased him down ruthlessly because they figured that after they kill him, he would just end up back in his own world. Some takeaways that Naofumi received that the anime chose not to go into are the possibility of drop items, tech skills that allowed him to synthesize, which make his need to physically synthesize materials pointless. Following all the tips that the heroes could agree on, they then move into the secrets of getting stronger. They promise to create charts or something that will list all the good locations and monsters to hunt based off of your level for efficiency. But here's where the conversation turns sour and some events again differ. Of course, we see each hero give their surefire way of leveling up, which in turn is met by anger and criticism from the other heroes, each accusing the other of lying about their secrets, but instead of being angry, Naofumi is just left confused and suspicious of their intentions. He then moves on to explaining everything he knows. First, starting with how he made his party stronger by simply absorbing the slave ink, thus unlocking the ability to adjust the slave stats. Then they speak about the incident with the T-Rex, where the Queen corrects their thinking that Naofumi was the one to release the monster. And Naofumi explains that there is where they met Victoria, and she transported them to another place. But with this knowledge, the conversation quickly moves into teleporting. We find out that all the heroes would need to do to teleport is ask for some of the sand from the Dragon Hourglass, and this will allow them to unlock the teleport skill. After finishing telling them about how Philo got stronger, they then demanded to know how he received his shield skill. Though angered, he still tried to explain about the Curse series and where they could read up on it, but they instead insisted that he was lying. The room erupted into yelling as in the anime when they were informed that the parties downstairs were fighting. Downstairs, we found Raphtalia not only arguing with the man in the armor, but also with Bitch. Even though she was just poisoned and fresh out the hospital, she still found the energy to argue and belittle the Shield's party. Isuki attempted to reprimand the armored guy, but is reminded of his own words for disdain towards Naofumi. The group decides to call it quits for the evening. Chapter 3, Power Up. I've said time and time again that for some silly reason the anime chose to leave out key details about leveling up and powering up that Naofumi achieves throughout the series. It seems every episode he has a new skill, you're like, that's cool, but where'd you find that? The biggest part of this volume is the power that Naofumi and his company attain as they journey. Following the events of the feast, Naofumi is left in deep thought, and yet it would be per usual for the other guys to try to deceive him, but why did they seem so sure and accuse the others of lying? He tried to believe them, even for a moment, and wrote down what each of them said. He then compared their experience to his own, and he came to the conclusion that the system would be whatever you believed it to be. And only then was he able to confirm everything that the hero said in his own menus, where before he could not. He then decided to believe in each individual method that they said the others denied, and he couldn't believe his own eyes. Using the materials he's gathered so far, he was able to compile and level up his already unlocked skills. Next, he unlocked the defense job title and used the monster remnants to level them up as high as he could. It seemed Itsuki had been telling the truth, so he tried Ren's next. By just believing, he was soon resetting skill points from least used skills to power up his Chimera Viper shield. Doing this repeatedly, he managed to raise the rarity of his favorite weapon to rare, substantially raising the stats from before. He would move on to Manto Yasu's, but this would require ore, so he decided to ask the queen about it later. Those shit heroes were all telling the truth. All you had to do was believe it. He couldn't believe it. He then asked for the other heroes to be informed of his revelation, but by the next morning, as we see in episode 22, the heroes had already departed for the ship for Chimera. Naofumi puts in his order for ore and materials with the queen and heads off thinking of how much stronger he has and will grow now because of this. Chapter 4, Weapon Copy. On his way to the ship for Chimera, Naofumi decides to stop by the weapon shop to see his old bud. They hadn't seen each other since the bounty was placed on their head, so it was a joyous meeting now that he's been cleared of all charges. Like in the anime, Naofumi here utilizes the copy system he learned from the other heroes, but unlike in the anime, he tells the shopkeeper about it first and actually receives permission. Every time he copies a shield, not only did it unlock that specific shield, but it also unlocked variants within the same family. The shopkeeper then brings him a new looking shield called the Side Right. He then takes the shield and copies it and unlocks the Side Right shield ability Shooting Star. Realizing he finally had joined the bumbling Shooting Star Club with the other heroes, he tries out his new skill and a sphere of light appears, keeping just the shopkeeper out. Naofumi then realizes he needs to add others to his party, even temporarily, so that they can also utilize his shield's defense. Chapter 5, Gravestones. The next chapter begins the same as episode 22 ends. The crew, en route to the harbor, make a pit stop to Raphtalia's old village. What we see here is the same as in the anime, with the exception of the crew not yet meeting the other two adventurers. This will come once they reach the pier. At the pier, they have their initial run-in with the two, which goes over the same. They then find out about the other heroes taking all of the private rooms. Naofumi thought to complain, but then he remembers them allowing them to bring their large carrot, so he lets it go. We do find out that since the activation event is such a big deal and the Queen wants everyone to level up, the Kingdom has essentially acquired all the tickets for the ship and selling them at a lower affordable rate for adventurers. But due to max capacity and the other heroes' party's selfishness, some people are being refunded due to less room. Naofumi accepts the situation and we return to an anime where he again runs into Loyark and Therese in their new rooms. Chapter 6, Calmira. Following the departure for Calmira, we get to see in the anime that the other heroes are unable to bear the rocking of the ship. For all the shit they give Naofumi, not one of them, including their party, could stand without wanting to puke. What we don't see is while on the deck of the ship, Philo has made easy work of two large sea creatures that attempted to eat her while swimming, and Naofumi uses this as a chance to unlock even more abilities. This probably explained why he can handle the ship so well and there was no problem becoming an even better swimmer. Once on the island, Naofumi and his party parts ways with Loyark and his company and agreed to link in 2 days, and as we saw, Naofumi is confronted by the Earl who acted as a tour guide. On the way to his lodging, they caught sight of a totem pole consisting of a penguin, rabbit, squirrel, and dog stacked on top of each other, known as the pioneers that brought prosperity to the island: Peku, Usuani, Rasuka, and Enolt. Focusing on the tablet, it was said that it was left by the legendary heroes to guide the next heroes. When the other heroes tried to read it, they failed and stated it must be fate. But when Naofumi attempted, he realized it was magical letters and was capable of reading the incantations inscribed. Doing so allowed him to choose a target. Targeted Philo, she was capable of jumping really high, even in her human form. But after looking at her stats, Naofumi saw that they had all received the bonus. Realizing that the tablet wasn't fake, the other heroes wanted to try their hand, but it was concluded that they never took the time to actually learn to read magic letters, and they took the easy route to learn most of their spells. The others assumed he had a shield that allowed him to read it instead. The story continues the same as we see in episode 23 of the anime following their arrival. While leveling, Naofumi realizes he has stopped receiving experience points. Then suddenly a monster near him is attacked by an arrow and we see that Itsuki is also in the area. Naofumi attempts to explain to Itsuki the issue with him attacking other parties' kills, but Itsuki brushes him off and Naofumi decides to just have lunch for the day until both parties part ways. Another scene we completely skip is where Naofumi gets to witness, again, the treatment Risha receives from her party as the new recruit. She is treated as a servant, and the group somehow receives meals based off their rank. Itsuki and crew finish their meals and leave Naofumi, and our party decides to head back to the main island. Once back, they run into Therese and Loyark again, and here's where she asks Naofumi whether or not he can make the accessory for her. After speaking to the Earl again, and also a shadow they managed to flag down, they decided the best way for them to level up without the interference would be just to level up at night. So again, later that day, they continue their leveling. Oddly enough, they seem to be leveling up more since they were fighting at night than when they arrive at the island. When they arrive, Naofumi was level 43, while Raphtalia and Philo were both level 40. But now, Naofumi was 48, Raphtalia 50, and Philo 51. While they were leveling at night is when they ran into Loyark and Therese again, as we saw in the anime. Chapter 7, The Tavern. The next chapter follows the anime from where they are found by Loyark and Therese and are invited to the tavern for a late night cup. Though many scenes of this chapter are sped ran, the biggest takeaway was shown where Naofumi was capable of eating the small red fruit, which he finds out is a rucolo, and just one is capable of making a barrel full of alcohol. Also capable of putting a full-grown beast on the ass, but this is nothing to Naofumi. Chapter 8, Karma. This chapter is a major one where we differ greatly from the anime. Since they had agreed to meet in 2 days, they still had another day of leveling, so they decided another day would be fun. We do get a quick blurb about learning the skill hate reaction while copying weapons at the shopkeeper's shop, and he tries this out. Though nothing seems to happen, Philo informs him that some sort of nastiness is emanating off his body, and all the monsters in the 50-meter area, including ones battling other adventures, all turn their attention towards him. Realizing how troublesome this would be for most of the younger adventurers, they decide to go on to the innermost parts of the island, and here is where they ran into each of the island's protectors. First was the Karma Dog. Leading up to this encounter, the crew ran into the Karma Dog familiar as they journeyed deeper and deeper. Absorbing this monster after defeating it, he unlocks a new shield. Here is also where we see the scene where the group noticed that their current weapons were wearing out much faster than usual, and Naofumi guesses it must be because they're outgrowing their durability. When Raphtalia attempts to switch to her magic sword, she finds out that even her magic output is too much for the sword to handle. Once they reached the center, they ran into the boss of the island, the Karma Dog. Though the battle wasn't a walk in the park, the party overcomes the boss of the island using combination attacks from both Philo and Raphtalia. The hardest part of the fight is that the boss kept calling for more reinforcements, thus prolonging the inevitable. Once defeated, Naofumi absorbed the boss and looked through the drop items to where he discovers the Karma Dog Claw. Interested, he selects it and the claws appear from nowhere and land at their feet. Seeing this for the first time surprises the whole group, but it's soon written off as a weird thing of the shield. The Karma Dog Claw gave great stat boosts, but unfortunately didn't come with blood coating and required Philo to be in human form to use, but they were better than nothing. When she used them, they terribly shed the enemy, and whether due to a dark element or curse on the weapon, made the enemy inedible even to Philo. As the sun was setting, Naofumi was sitting at level 63, Raphtalia 65, and Philo 67, and Naofumi was wondering just how much they could level when they ran into Leark and Therese again. Though we see it in the anime, I want to point out again that Leark refuses to believe who stood before him was one of the 4 legendary heroes. He believed the rumors that the hero was a liar, a thief, a con man, a rapist, a demon, and a murderer. After this quick meet, the group decides to call it a day while Philo goes for a swim in the ocean and the two head back to the room. The next morning, they link back up with Leark and company, and Naofumi gives the completed accessory to Therese. Here's where we also find out that Leark was level 56 and Therese was 52. Just like in the anime, this only gives Naofumi a moment of pause. The weird thing was after defeating a monster, Leark was able to absorb the materials with his weapon just like the heroes could. But this couldn't be possible since Naofumi was still able to gain experience points even though they were fighting together. Soon they ran into the Karma Rabbit familiar just like before, and they soon were fighting the Karma Rabbit. The highlight of this fight is where we see Therese use the spell that hit both Naofumi and the enemy, but it didn't hurt Naofumi. After defeating just a familiar, Naofumi unlocks the Karma Rabbit familiar shield, and with this new shield he unlocks something like an early danger sensing ability. After defeating the Karma Rabbit, Naofumi found the Karma Rabbit sword, like in the anime, that he gives to Raphtalia to replace her current weapon. Following some more leveling, the crew all returned to the main island, and Naofumi thought to himself that he might like to invite them to his party permanently. Chapter 9, Island Days. Chapter 9 was a fairly short one, where again our young heroes are back to leveling alone. We found out that they had already taken out another island boss called the Karma Pengu and unlocked the Pengu Familiar Shield, and even more swimming skills. Along with the new shield and skills, they also picked up a new drop item, the Pekko Kigurumi. We see the item in the anime, a penguin with the Christmas hat. As for the progress of the leveling, Naofumi was now 73, Raphtalia 75, and Philo 76. Chapter 10, The Water Temple. The Water Temple follows the end of episode 23 of the anime, with the only difference being they weren't lounging on the beach when Philo announced this underwater island. Since receiving the Kigurumi drop loot item, the group had received 2 more so they all could wear it to swim to the bottom of the ocean. The crew hopped on Philo's back, swam out far from the island, then donned the new pieces of gear and were soon under the waves diving deeper and deeper. Just like in the anime, the group discovers another dragon hourglass with just 2 days left on the timer. As soon as the crew were back at the island, Naofumi called an emergency hero meeting and began explaining to everyone else what he had discovered. Again, we part ways with the anime because we didn't follow most of the events of what happened in those 2 days. After telling the other heroes, everyone was excited except Ren. He absolutely refused to believe any of the story and also refuses to fight. But through much pulling and teasing, it is eventually discovered that Ren is afraid simply because he cannot swim. After this discovery, the group then moves on to game planning the upcoming battle. They assume since the hourglass was discovered in the middle of the ocean, it is likely it will be a sea battle. Naofumi also finds out here that the reason the other three heroes had yet to bring support troops to any of the waves was because they didn't know that they could. Soon, Naofumi was impressing them with his in-depth knowledge of large-scale battles, and this goes back to though he wasn't the same type of gamer as the other three were in their world, he was big into MMOs and has plenty of experience managing guilds and coordinating guild wars. His interest was in management, not maxing out his own stats. With the help of the use of underwater magic, the heroes all went down to visit the newly discovered hourglass. Once back up again, they were back to strategizing and looking through who was available when Naofumi realized their lack of sailors. So the plan was for one of the heroes to register Chimera, return to the castle, add more troops to their support, and load up the boats with supplies and troops. Then they should return using the teleportation in the middle of the ocean. This plan hinged on the wave actually being in the water. They also discussed the use of Rucolo barrels that had been authorized for use in this battle. Lastly, they also planned to request the assistance of all the adventurers who were currently leveling up during the activation event. With the help of everyone, Naofumi foresaw the least amount of collateral damage. In the end, Naofumi was chosen to return to the castle, maybe due to his good graces with the queen. So before leaving, Naofumi finally absorbed some of the Dragon Hourglass sand to unlock his portal shield. That evening, the group went back to the castle and were already met with the informed queen, and the next morning, preparation for the wave began. Naofumi received many of his requested items from the queen, so he began to use those same methods to power up his specific shields. First, his Soul Eater shield. Now awakened, it was even more powerful than his Chimera Viper shield. According to the numbers, his defense was now 4 times what it was before. Next, he decided, though he hoped he would never have to use it, it may be worth leveling up his Wraith Shield 3. The next morning, during last-minute preparations, the final countdown begins. Unlike in the anime, the crew was still not sure of where the wave was to transport them, so they stood ready in smaller boats with no sails just in case. Just moments before, Raphtalia mentions wishing Sadina was here. She explains that she was once a fisher for her village and was like an older sister to her. Reason why she thinks of her now was because she was an aquatic type and she knew how useful she would be for the upcoming battle. But at this moment, she's unsure she's even alive. The timer was now up and they were transported to the wave. Chapter 11, Interdimensional Wave. 0 minutes and 0 seconds. The time had transpired and the crew were once again teleported to the next wave battlefield. Once Naofumi's senses were working at full power again, he realized that they were currently floating in the water, so it was to be a sea battle. The soldiers quickly received the orders to row to the larger ships that were already there due to the preparations at the island, and Naofumi could already see the rifts in the sky where monsters were already emerging. Once they reached a larger ship, our party jumps on board and we are met with Itsuki's party and one weirdo and a Kurigiri, likely to be Rishia. The beginning of the wave largely remained the same, with the fight between the spawn monsters from the cracks and the kingdom and adventurers. What the anime did choose to change was the fight with the interdimensional whale. Again, the fact that Ren could not swim came up, and the heroes realized their attacks from outside the sea were ineffective as long as the whale remained in the water. While the three were ready to go on the attack, one was still hesitant. Ultimately, it was decided for Ren and Natsuki to remain on the ship for range attacks, while Motoyasu and Naofumi would go into the water and attack. Naofumi jokes it's because his weapon is like a harpoon, so it's better suited for the task. Though Naofumi was unable to do real damage, he was clearly more powerful than the whale. Even in the water, he could manhandle the whale and take control. Soon, Motoyasu was unleashing every spear skill he had on the whale underwater. Philo was landing critical hits all over as well, and Raphtalia had taken over the ship's ballista and was landing critical shots herself. The battle was nearly over when suddenly L'Arc jumped in the water, and soon he and Therese used their combo attacks to finish off the whale. From here, we return to events in the anime. Chapter 12, L'Arc Berg. So far during this wave, this was the best adapted chapter for the anime. While the novel does describe many of the scenes we see, the anime does well to add an additional level of choreography to the fight. In addition to that, Naofumi starts to relate these two to Glass much faster than we saw in the anime. While the order may have changed up a bit, the anime does well to traverse the events from Heroes versus Lark and Therese to just Naofumi and Crew versus Lark and Therese. As for how Naofumi felt internally, it was pure anger and hatred. Once again, he had been betrayed by someone he may have even considered a friend. Maybe they were always enemies who just accidentally became friends. Whatever the case was, he was fooled, and they still believed him to be the vile criminal they had expected. Maybe they are right, but maybe they don't understand. But the only thing important right now was taking these two down. Once the fight became party versus party, the real song and dance began. Neither side was weaker than the other, so they were both forced to be both on the defensive as well as the offensive. With the discovery of Lark's defense ignoring attack, Naofumi was forced to strategize faster and end this battle even quicker. Again, the fight was written quite descriptive, but the anime does well adapting the choreography between the two parties. By the end of the exchange, Lark was beat up fairly badly, but still standing, and the Shield party could still keep fighting, but they were growing tired themselves. This chapter ends with Lark admitting that he is unable to beat Naofumi's party. Naofumi looks out at the unconscious heroes floating out in the distance, and Glass had returned. Chapter 13, Soul Healing Water. Our final chapter of the novel begins how episode 24 ends. Glass has appeared and Naofumi is tired of this bull. Including fighting the raid boss, this will make round 3 for him. Unlike in the anime though, immediately when Glass attacks Naofumi, she is met with his Soul Eater shield and it drains some of her SP. She reacts the same way as we see in the anime and the fight continues on, but this time Glass is noticeably slower than the first time they fought. After a few more exchanges, the other world heroes go on the defense and create space between the two. Next, Therese heals Lark, and Glass tries to use the same ground-killing skill again as a combination with Therese, but it is easily defended against by Naofumi. Not only this, but most of their attacks outside the defense ignoring attacks did little to his party. We do miss during this fight where Naofumi orders Ralphia to attack Glass with her magic sword. Timing it perfectly, she manages to dodge the defense and landing a blow directly in Glass's stomach. On contact, it made an odd sparking sound and suddenly exploded, giving both parties time to regroup and recover. This was replaced by Naofumi just using his Dark Curse burning counter. Though she was badly injured, Glass was still not out to fight. Lark then appears to help her recover using the Soul Healing Water, and she explains to Naofumi that for her, it helps her recover and replenish her SP. Soon she was back on the offensive, and she appears right in Naofumi's face, but she is held back by Philo's counterattack, to which she responds with a tortoise shell break defense-piercing attack to Naofumi's shoulder. Nearly crumbled, he manages to stop a last-minute defense-ignoring attack from Lark with his shooting star shield, but he's barely holding on. Glass performs one last powerful moonbreak to finish things, but Naofumi quickly switches to his Wrath Shield, barely defends against the incoming attack, then sends the nastiest Dark Curse burning to return the favor to his shoulder, for his shoulder and his shield. Both on their last leg, they prepare to finish the other off with a final attack, even if it meant exhausting everything that they had left and risking the consequences. When Naofumi notices the queen and a person in a squirrel kigurumi clinging to a barrel. The queen actually is the one that uses her magic to shoot the barrel at Naofumi, to which he reacts with a shooting star shield once he realizes the contents. Once it explodes, the contents left a red mist on the battlefield that it blinds and incapacitates everyone around, to which our party uses the opportunity to land multiple sneak attacks from the safety of the shooting star shield, since it wouldn't allow anything in it, including the red mist. Finally, the enemy manages to create space by jumping in the water to escape the red mist, and Naofumi uses this chance to place Lark in a shield prison. Him and Glass manages to free him, but enough time has passed that suddenly there is a loud beep and 59 seconds appears in their vision. Both realizing time was nearly up and knowing they had to finish things, Naofumi and Glass made their moves. Naofumi readies his next curse burning while Glass suddenly appears in front of him, but not a second longer, until Lark was bear hugging her from behind. Still, Naofumi would not allow them to escape, but the crew uses their skills to cause a distraction so that they could get away from Naofumi and his party. Our chapter ends with the realization that though they've won this time, next time they'll be starting all over again. Epilogue: The Problem We Face. Our novel wraps up with an epilogue, and while we do see most of these scenes in the anime, there is a data dump that we once again miss out on. Following the battle, the other heroes are once again carted off, unconscious, by the kingdom's medics. Naofumi learns that the red mist of the Rucola fruit also has the benefit of providing the user unlimited magic and concentration, to which he would have allowed him to just spam shield prisons in the last battle. We also get to see Naofumi's theories on who Leark and the others were and what was going on with the Waves of Destruction. Theory 1. Glass and the others are trying to raid this world. Theory 2. Glass and the others stood to benefit from killing the other heroes. And Theory 3. Vittoria said that if the heroes died, the world would have no way to stand against the waves. Is that what they wanted? Following, the Queen and Naofumi discussed the heroes in their absence. In their eyes, they were not much stronger than adventurers with skills. Where everything that has happened, he now felt he is strong enough to withstand even the priest attacks. So this proved that the heroes had the ability to get stronger. So what was their issue? He understood, finally, the importance of them working together. Even if he did become powerful, what was the point if he could only protect? They all need to be where he was. Following his discussion with the Queen, we see, as we see in the anime, our young party talks about their need and want to become stronger. They also express that they want to be even more helpful for Naofumi and what is to come. Naofumi notes that even the way that they are now, they are already more powerful than the current heroes. They surmised that the only thing that they needed now was help, and since it wasn't coming from the other heroes and their parties, then it would mean that they would need additional party members. The thought of this reminded him of the betrayal he felt from Leark and Therese. He needed people he could trust, and though he had found that in those two, maybe he fell too quickly because he wanted to trust. For now, what he needed most was rest. And that is the end of Volume 5 of the light novel and also Season 1 of the anime. After everything that has happened, Naofumi does try to remain hopeful for what is to come. The end of Season 1 does make it seem that Naofumi is finally in a good place emotionally and is truly happy, but I'm sorry to let you know that Naofumi does not declare here that he doesn't plan to return home following the waves. Many of the last half of episode 25 was completely thrown together and is not included in the novel. While during the last episode, we also see that Rishia joins their party, but this also does not happen at the end of the volume. And when it does happen in Volume 6, it is much better explained. In addition, Naofumi does not receive Rautalia's village. This is not something that happens until much later, and when it does, it holds an even greater significance than it does now. But let's not worry about that now. We'll cross those bridges once we get there. We have not yet reached the happy ending quite yet. I hope you all have enjoyed this review of the 5th volume of the novel, and if you are enjoying it so far, leave a like and a comment and let us know how we're doing. We're looking forward to the next installment of the series. See you all next time. Peace.